Alright, today we are working on an EU6500. Customer complained of a no start condition. Let's see if we can get it started. Alright, first thing we're going to do is we're going to drain the fuel out of the carb, whatever's in there. It actually smells like complete and utter garbage, to be honest. A lot of water in it too, so definitely older fuel. Not even worth wasting time on. So we're going to get all this stuff out of the way. Air cleaner, vacuum hoses. Get the air box out of the way there. Two 10mm nuts. Get that PCV hose off of there. And get the intake boot off the bottom there. Just one little clamp to undo. And we can get that out of the way. Alright, we got the spacer plate behind there. Just take note of the orientation. That little cutout's going to be to the top right. You'll see it there. Backing plate removal. And we are going to try to slide this crazy motorized electronic carburetor out of there. First, we're going to take out the wiring for the automatic choke and the automatic throttle. Choke to the front. Throttle is the rear connector. And there we are. So it's actually got an auto choke system through this potentiometer, or a stepper motor rather, and then an auto throttle through the secondary stepper motor. So what I'm doing here is just for the sake of a full clean, because of how long this fuel's been sitting in here, I'm going to do a full out disassembly on this carb. So I'm actually going to take the plates and everything out of it. Normally, you wouldn't have to do this. Just a quick clean without doing it would be fine. Get that throttle plate out of there. Take note, you got the little holes there that help align that properly. That way it doesn't get jammed in the bore or anything down the line. And there you are with the choke and throttle plates removed. Going to pull the bowl off now. Now there is a little O-ring that sits on the bottom of that, so make sure that's intact. There's our bowl. You can kind of sort of see there's some yellowy, varnishy buildup there. A little bit of rust almost, it looks like. Not the best lighting for it, but... And now we're going to go with our carb disassembly. We're looking at the main jet and the float assembly there, so we're going to pull the float pin out. And we're going to lift the float and needle assembly up out of the carburetor. We don't want to lose the little spring or the needle assembly. Try to get it in focus here. There we are. So that's just a little spring-loaded needle. As that float moves up and down, it allows fuel in and out of the carburetor bowl. So we've got our O-ring still in the carburetor housing. That's where the bowl actually seals up against. And right down in the center of the carburetor, that brass screw with the slot in it is part of our main jet assembly. This one's not terribly clogged up. And actually, to correct myself, that would be considered an emulsion tube. So biggest thing on these, especially if they're older, make sure you have exactly the right size screwdriver tip in there. Otherwise, you will strip that out and it'll be a nightmare. So you can see there, that's clean. That's where the fuel initially comes up through. So that's good. And then right in the center, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it real good, but you'll be able to see the emulsion tube actually sticking up into the carburetor body. You just give it a quick couple taps with the screwdriver and it'll come out the bottom. And once we get this in focus, trying, come on, camera. Get all this crap out of the way. There we are. And you can see we got little holes in there that we're going to need to make sure each and every one of those is cleaned out. Make sure there's no debris. All right, get that O-ring off of the carb there. And really, you don't have to take this extra step here. But I'm going to take the whole top assembly off the carb because I am going to be sticking it in a dunk tank. And I really don't want to run into potential issues in case those motors aren't working properly or whatever. Not a big deal to do. Just make sure you don't lose the little springs like I got there. So that's what actually the stepper motor works against, those spring-loaded pieces. And that's front and back, and that little black section is actually still stuck in the control assembly on top. So one stayed in and one stuck on the carburetor. All right, take it over to the sonic tank. These are cool little things, ultrasonic cleaner. Stick it right in there. Let's crank the heat up, 65 Celsius, and put it on for half an hour. And that'll sit there, and that'll use ultrasonic vibrations to help clean that carb out. Meanwhile, we're going to go back, and we're just going to use a little piece of wire to clean out all the holes in the emulsion tube and everything else we can. Now, you don't want to use anything oversized when you're cleaning these out, because you can actually enlarge the hole and overly richen up the carburetor, which is going to cause you issues. So just find something that fits close but not too snugly, and just make sure you got nice clean passageways. Nice and easy. And then a little carb cleaner down through there, just to make sure everything's okay. Kind of shoot the last of that debris out of there. And there's our carburetor back out of the ultrasonic cleaner there, and we're going to go right through our main fuel inlet. Kind of flush anything out through there that might be remaining. And then we're basically going to go and all our ports there, that's our overflow, our vent essentially for the carburetor. We want to make sure that's nice and clean. basically any hole in this carburetor, any port, anything, we want to make sure that's nice and clean. So just some spray through there. And here's one of our idle air passages. Just get it in. That'll help flush out anything that may be residual from being ultrasonically cleaned. If you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, using a carb cleaner like this and just being real meticulous with everything, as long as the carburetor's not super gummed up with really bad fuel or, trashed, I'd say 75 to 80% of the time you can bring a carburetor back just using regular gum cutter and a disassembly to clean it. Sometimes, even if it doesn't bring it fully back, it may be enough to at least get you going with the machine running on, quarter or half choke. At least enough to get you by until you can get a new carburetor for it. So we're reassembling, and one thing to keep in mind is for a lot of these cheaper carburetors, $20, $30, $40 carburetors, it's not worth going through all the effort to try to clean it out, especially with how lean everything is run with emissions nowadays. So really all you want to do for them for, total return on investment, you're better off just replacing the carb on these. This carb here is about 140 or 150 bucks, I believe, and wasn't really too terrible. So it's definitely worth, putting the time and effort into trying to give it a clean before we just go and slap a new one on. So while I was rambling on, we threw the float assembly back on. We're putting the O-ring back in for the bowl assembly, a new one. You can reuse the old one if you need to. I just like to, be sure and always put a new one in. Less potential for leak, one less thing I have to take apart again. And what we're doing here is we're just making sure we have that bowl assembly clocked correctly. Get it back in the frame. So that when it goes back into the generator assembly, we'll still be able to access that bowl drain for when we put it away for storage. So we kind of hold all that together. Put that main bowl screw in there, and you can't quite see it, but there is an O-ring on the bottom of that. We want to make sure that's in good condition. Otherwise, we'll have a fuel leak out of there as well. And let's put some fresh fuel in it. There we are. A few gallons of nice fresh fuel. And outside we go. Uh-oh. See if we can navigate through the minefield of crap here. And we're almost home free. Yeah, even if you're only going to run the generator a short period of time, I really do prefer to run it outside. It's just easier. All right, key on, fuel on, auto choke, or not auto choke, but rather auto throttle off. Anchor over. And we got it running here, and we're just going to do a quick load test. I'm not going to go into a full-out crazy load bank testing. We'll do that in another video. This is just our heat gun. This thing cranked up, we'll load it to about 15 amp 10 circuit. And while we're doing it, why not melt some residual snow? And that is it. Thank you.